Hi, welcome to the video. So this time round we're going to be looking at another cave, an M-shaped one, that of what abandoned mines and unusual places found. I was able to successfully get permission from the channel to use bits of footage, so that's good of them. And yeah, I'm just going to be giving it an overall analysis of what the area looks like, if there is anything strange about it, if anything stands out that, you know, some people may have missed, others may have seen, just like how we've done with previous caves. You never know what, you may find. I do believe there is something there, something hidden, but we'll have to have a closer look and see if there's any clues just to reinforce that point. So I hope you enjoyed the video and let's begin. So to begin with, the location of the cave itself is unknown of, as the channel did not provide us with a precise location or any coordinates whatsoever of where the cave is, so we are not to know, as this footage demonstrates.
The guy who kind of alerted me to this location, his name's Don, and he's in the military, and he was searching for this himself, and I really can't say where I am exactly because he's the one that told me about this and wanted me to keep it undisclosed.
So I think already things are interesting and also strange, because look at it this way. A military guy was originally looking for this cave, and now he does not want the coordinates, the location being revealed publicly. Why is that? Normally, when someone doesn't want to release information, it's because it's secretive, it's important, and there's risk behind it. What are they hiding? Surely this cave must have something mysterious, strange, hidden going on, if that guy does not want anyone to know the location. Surely. You know, if it was any old cave, then you'd think, yeah, here's the coordinates, anyone can go, whatever. But there seems to be risk behind this. Maybe the military guy could get in trouble, maybe silenced. But why? Is it in a restricted location? Does it step over a boundary, a border? Is it very close to one of the military bases, such as Nellis Air Force Base, as this part of the footage shows?
Okay, I just turned on to Nevada State Highway 375 East, also known as the Extraterrestrial Highway. That way, which is east, and we're getting close to the Nellis Air Force Base.
So yeah, maybe one of you can maybe map it out, guess, predict where the actual location is of the cave. I'm not going to in this video because I don't have enough information with me to do so. But nevertheless, let's start looking at the cave itself and begin this analysis.
So, I believe that up there is the M cave.
Okay, so now this is the location of where the supposed M cave is. Frank, who is also known as Exploring Abandoned Mines and Unusual Places, did state it took some time to find, as there were a lot of dead ends or so. So it just goes to show that even though he's been given either coordinates or the name of the location, even he still found it somewhat difficult to find. So who knows what it would be like for someone who has no clue. Anyhow, let's just look at the environment, the terrain to begin with. You know, it looks reasonable compared to other hikes, other routes, other bits of footage. You know, it seems okay. Somewhat flat the ground, doesn't look too loose, not too rocky, not too many hills and mountain tops. However, one thing we must remember and not underestimate, just like Jay Silverheels said, most of the guys, most of the hikers tend to record after doing the hardest part of the hike, the most dangerous part, because they're not going to be recording when they're doing that. They need focus. So maybe it is a bit difficult to get there beforehand. You know, there might be a few hills and mountains you got to go over. Who knows? But at this point in time on screen, the terrain looks reasonable. And as you can see, just a bit ahead is where the cave supposedly is. Let's have a closer look at it with a magnifying glass. So one thing I made sure to do was highlight the magnifying glass in red, so it's easier for you, the viewer, to track where I'm looking, okay? So we just enlarged the magnifying glass a little bit. As I said, the terrain looks reasonable. Not too many loose rocks and stones. Bit of vegetation, and then a bit of a slope there, and then in the distance as well. It goes like that, up and down. Now, it's this area here we need to be looking at, so we just make it a little bit bigger. I don't know if you can quite make out the M symbol, but we'll get to that in a second. Just zoom in a bit. So if we look here, you can see a build-up of rocks, like a wall. So yeah, that's interesting. And that's just in front of the cave. Now, I think you might be able to make out the M shape. Okay, so if I just use a quick marker pen, it looks like it goes up like this, down, back up, and then down. Something like that, to be rough. Let's now have a closer look at the cave itself. So here is a close-up shot of the entrance of the M-shaped cave. So yes, it does resemble the letter M, as Frank states. However though, it does not quite fit the criteria of the characteristics described by Kenny Veach.
And it's shaped like a big M. It's a big cave that looks just like a gigantic M, and it's about as tall as I am and kind of narrow, and it's stuck on the side of a mountain.
Now yes, the cave in this video is on ground level. However, it's not deep, it's not dark, it's quite shallow, as you can see within. And also, in terms of the height, it's not the height of a human, because it's low down to the ground, as the arrow is shown on screen. You know, as Frank demonstrates later on in the video, he has to crawl on his hands and knees, and I think at one point on his stomach. So it's not exactly that accessible, and it doesn't fit what Kenny described. Nevertheless, I still believe there is something quite dodgy about this, so make sure to stick around. Now, let me show you a key interesting feature.
Now, this doesn't look to be very deep at all, and it looks like they were trying to wall it off. There's stacked rocks right there, as well as behind me here.
So yeah, it's quite strange how you've got that rock wall just in front of the cave itself, which you can see on screen. This is a shot taken from inside looking out. And then the obvious one, just a bit further back on the left hand side, you've got this rock wall. Very weird. Now I believe this rock wall to not be natural, but to have been man-made by humans. If we use the magnifying glass, you can see the way it is, it's piled on top of one another. Quite loosely, but it's definitely been stacked by a human or a group of people. Now the two questions are, what type of people have done this and why? If we look in the background, there's not really a drop, you know, there's not like a hidden ledge and then you'll fall off. So it rules out the idea that the wall was put there to stop people from wandering off and then falling off and then injuring themselves. That's ruled out. Is it there to stop animals from getting in? Well, clearly not, because as you saw, the rock wall was unfinished and it's not exactly that secure. So I don't think it would have kept animals, wildlife out. So what other reason behind it then? Is it to block out the sun? Not really. Not really a good job. Or was it done as an attempt to seal off the cave? An attempt to stop people from entering? but it was never fully completed. Maybe. Now, let's move on. So this shot is taken when Frank enters the cave. Now, as you can see, it is very shallow. Now, the focus is on the back wall. Now, I'll get to those arrows in a second, what I mapped out, but Frank believes this area highlighted in that red outline is suspicious. And I think from what he says later on, there being a hatch, a doorway, this is the possible area to where it could be. And other people in the comment section believe it as well. Now, is it a fill-in? Possibly. If we look back at mine, in red is basically marking what Frank highlighted, that circular fill-in, the yellow arrow, different type of rock, different colour, and then the same on the side, the blue arrow, another like different texture, different colour. So there's at least 3 different colours. So it can make you think, is this natural or not? Has it been put there, man-made? Has someone come along, has military come along and filled it in because it was an entrance into somewhere? You never know. But let us take a break. Let's pause for a second and think. What we need to remember and use as reference is Scott Natal and Sean. Both of those came across caves like this, shallow, not deep, and had interesting rock formations and connections between other rocks in colour. Let's have a look at that and compare it to this, what Frank saw.
And I don't see anything interesting as far as gold. There's
Stuff. Clearly, I mean, it's got that same like white seam. Who knows? Here, it starts. This seam, and it runs all the way up here. And then clearly, you know, we have this same fill in. Something was filled in here. I mean, come on. This whole thing could be filled in.
So on screen right now, I have compiled all 3 hikers in their respective locations of the caves they encountered. And I've done this as a side-by-side comparison. So on the left-hand side, you've got that suspicious fill-in. Then with Sean, who also believes there is a fill-in where he is. And then Scott Natal. Now, out of all 3 of them, only one doesn't believe it's suspicious, and that's Scott in his area. So we look at Scott's first of all. You can clearly see there's a range of different rock colours and maybe rock types. You got light brown, you got grey, and then kind of a darker black lower down. And then that lightish dust colour on the right hand side. And within that, you've got that white line going all the way down, split down the middle. So you could argue, is that some kind of sealant used? But from Scott's video and his picture, it's most likely natural. And it's probably just maybe minerals or different types of rock and kind of like rock scars or veins within the rock. Now, the reason why I say Scott's is natural is because, aside from what certain people have said, people saying, oh, it's just the way the rocks are naturally, the way they're formed and stuff, well, nearby, in Scott's video, there is actually a hole in the ground which was originally used for mining, and it's very close by to this shallow cave.
Okay, we're inside. We're looking down in this mine. There's barbed wire. Drops down about 5 feet. I could climb in there, but it only goes. It goes to right there. It stops.
So it's likely that this shallow cave may have been used for mining. Some people used drills, pickaxes, chipped away, revealed it, left it exposed, and that's why you can see the veins in the rocks and the different coloured minerals and all kinds of different coloured rocks, which you see in Scott's. That would make sense. As with Sean's, questionable, because nearby, as you saw in one of the shallow caves, there is a keyhole at the back.
That's really gnarly though.
Now it makes you wonder what caused it. Well, some people argued it was a drill hole, maybe used for some kind of mining or trying to look in to see if you could see any resources. And then other people say it's bees, spiders, stuff like that.
What it is, it's a mud dauber's nest. That's nothing into the solid rock. That's like hornets and whatever, paste mud and then go inside whatever. Anyway, I scraped that a little bit with a stick, and it's like spider web material.
So there's a bit of back and forth there. However, from what rock experts have said, they believe it's natural in Sean's, just the way the rocks are formed, nothing odd about it. So if we're going off that idea that, especially in Sean's, since it's near a cave that looks covered up and there's supposedly sealant used as well, all that in mind would make you think that is dodgy, there's a cover-up, there's something very suspicious. Now, if that turns out that there's nothing odd about that, and it stands out much more than in Frank's video, it kind of starts making you think, well, if something so obvious isn't suspicious in the end, then where does that place Frank's finding? You could argue with Frank's because it doesn't look as suspicious as the likes of Sean's finding, then there's not much to it, but it's natural, more natural. However, if it was done as a good job, a good fill-in, you may not recognise it as much, and that's why it looks the way it does in Frank's. I think overall, in my opinion, it doesn't look like a fill-in. I don't see like white lines or anything used to seal it back. It all looks like it's a part of one whole thing, if that makes sense, because there is less colouring and conflict with the rocks. You know, it's not just like a split down the middle, one light rock, one dark rock. It's like one whole thing. So maybe it's more natural looking, doesn't look as suspicious compared to the other two pictures. But, you know, you can argue back and forth. But for me, the main focus is later on in the video, which we'll get to.
So there's some wooden remnants here. And there's a bottle.
So at this moment into the video, I would say this is one of the key sightings, arguably one of the most out of place items in that area. What are planks of wood doing in such a shallow cave? You know, the type of wood, the shaping of it, different widths, different lengths, and also there's nails still lodged within some of them. So what were they attached to? What were they used for? So that's kind of odd. Additionally, you've got that beer bottle, some bottle, top left corner of the screen. So if we have a closer look, you've got the beer bottle just up there. These planks of wood, the way they're dumped and stacked on top of one another. But then, one thing you've got to look at is there's certain pieces that are buried underneath, such as the one here. Then there's another piece down here, and then a little bit there. So it makes you think, how deep does it go down? Is there more buried underneath? What are we looking at here?
Well, here's...
Okay, so just a bit later on into the video, when Frank sits down, I noticed a few key findings on screen. So let us begin with the one towards the top of the screen. If we zoom in here, as you can see, kind of faintly, there is yet another plank of wood buried underneath. So who knows how much is underneath and how deep it goes down, but it's quite weird. So it's been covered over. Has it been purposely buried by someone to hide something? We'll get to that shortly. But nearby, in proximity, you've got these 3 fairly sized big rocks. Now, I assume they have fallen, collapsed from the ceiling above. So it makes me wonder, how safe is the structuring of that shallow cave? Could it cave in? Could it collapse? Or has it already, and that is why it's so shallow? There's a few questions around that. However, let's have a close look at the plank of wood nearest to our screen. These two. So one is some kind of notch, which is the one here. Like something slides into it, fits in. And then the one below it, where it goes a bit thin, and it looks like it's been man-made, carved out, looks like some kind of dowel, which would slot in, fit into a hole of something, maybe. So this ain't just bits of tree. This isn't someone that has gone out there, chopped up some bushes, chopped up some twigs, branches. These are actual planks of wood and have been man-made and designed and carved to be used for something. So this is why it's very weird due to the area it's in. What is nearby? It's quite remote. It looks quite empty. As you saw from the very first picture, there wasn't really much going on in that area. So who and why and where did they get these pieces of wood from? Is it further out? Is it nearby? Or is it in this exact area? It was never brought to this place. It was there to begin with. The point I'm getting across, there is a chance that this area, there could be a hidden mine shaft, and it could be right here on the screen, under the ground, buried. That's what I'm trying to get my point across, because these planks of wood do seem a little bit out of place due to the way they look first glance, and some of them, the shaping of them, look like they would be used maybe as a rung of a ladder, a part of a ladder, and then the other planks of wood maybe on top just to cover the hole, or reduce the surface area of the hole so you don't just fall down it. That's what I'm getting at. Now, let's just take another break, because there is an important link I must stress. We need to have a look back at the mine shaft where Kenny Veach was in Picture Canyon. We need to do a comparison and a breakdown of both this on screen, the type of wood, and the type of wood found at Kenny's mine shaft. Let's get into it.
This thing, who knows how long it's been out here, and I have no idea what they were digging up, but it looks like some of the rocks are kind of rusty, so it might have been some kind of ore. This is kind of iffy. I'm going to step on this thing. It's very old, but I'll just show you.
Up here on top, the end of the mountain right there. Someone I piled the wood up to save it or something.
Now, after watching the footage of the mineshaft, aside from the fact that 4 years after 2017 the mineshaft was sabotaged, if you don't know about that, make sure to follow the link on the screen above and watch it after this video, okay? But aside from that, once you compare the footage of Scott's, which is the mineshaft on the left, and the footage of Frank's on the right of that shallow cave, you can see similarities between the planks of wood. So, yes, the colouring is different. The one on the right is more pale, maybe dusty looking, but what you must consider is the one on the left, that wood has been left out and exposed to the environment, the weather, the sunlight, etc. The planks of wood on the right have been in a shaded area, maybe a cooler area as well. So that's probably why you're getting different colours. However, the texture of the planks, the size of them, the length, the width, do kind of match up with the ones on the left. It isn't the clearest, but it's the best one can do at this moment in time. You look at the planks of wood, different sizes, some wide, some thin, some long, some short. So a variety. And I don't know if you can quite make it out on this shot, but on some of them you can see the odd nails stuck in them. And we look on that one, got the odd few nails and stuff still stuck in. If you can see, look, you've got a wide piece, a wide plank there, and then a thin long one there. So all different shapes and sizes. So to round things up regarding this part, to put it simply, if you get those specific style and pieces of wood, that shape, that size, that width, that length, and it just so happens to be used at a mineshaft, whether it be flooring, support beams, braces, rungs on a ladder, or the ladder itself that goes all the way down into the shaft. If that's the stuff you'll find at a mineshaft, and it just so happens that the planks of wood in Frank's video looks very similar in terms of the looks, characteristics, then surely you would associate those pieces of wood being at a mineshaft as well. And then it makes you think, in Frank's video, that shallow cave, is the mineshaft exactly where those planks of wood are on the ground? Because on the outside, we couldn't see a mineshaft. Frank never mentioned anything about a mineshaft being in that area, so could it well be in that shallow cave? You never know, because, as I said, there was planks of wood buried underneath one another. So if you did a bit of digging, maybe it might reveal more. So aside from the planks of wood, there is another key item which stands out, which we'll get into next.
This bottle is, you can't see the label on that. It's empty.
So you may ask yourself, what's the significance of this item? There's not much to it. Well, if we're getting it across the idea that there's a mine shaft within this area, along with the planks of wood, as we previously described, this bottle could link as well. Because if we're referring back to Scott's hike video, exploring the inside of the mine shaft, he too comes across a glass bottle.
Another can, there's a bottle. Not an old bottle. Let's see what it is. Something in it. Some kind of beer bottle.
So once again, another side-by-side comparison. Yes, the bottles do look similar in shape and size. One is more see-through, the other one is not, but both make a little rattle sound when shook. Now, the real significance behind this is the idea that if a bottle or two was found in Scott's area in the mine shaft, then maybe the bottle found in Frank's shallow cave, maybe there's a mine shaft there as well. Now, how do you work that one out? Well, if we've already got planks of wood and other items found in Scott's video, which is at a mine shaft, then the planks and wood found in Frank's video might be of a mine shaft as well. And if you pair in the bottles as well, it just creates that idea that there was a working environment going on in that location. Because what else would be using bottles? Humans. Humans were there at a certain point in time, and if we're looking back at the mine shaft in Scott's video, people would have been working on constructing the mine shaft, opening it up, digging, looking for resources, getting rocks, and all kinds of stuff. And whilst in the process of that, they would have had bottles with them to quench their thirst or just to help them keep on going, doing their job. Now in Frank's video, maybe at some point in time, there were miners, workers, or someone else in that shallow cave working on it, digging in, creating an entrance, creating a hole, or even just simply building that rock wall, what you saw earlier on in the video. So there's been some form of human interaction, maybe to that environment and the structuring of it. So that's the point I'm trying to get across. The idea that, if certain items can be associated with a working environment of a mine shaft, then maybe similar items found elsewhere, aka in Frank's video, there may well be a mine shaft there as well. Whether it be inside of that shallow cave, under the ground, which is buried, or very nearby to the cave, there's a chance. Now, let's move on into the next part of the video.
Now, I do see over here some white scratch marks. Let me get a little bit closer. I'm not sure if that says hatch. Looks like an H, A, T, and then I'm not sure where the CH is.
So this part of the video is interesting too, due to the look of it. It looks like scrape marks or scratch marks. And as Frank said, it looks like it spells out the word hatch. Now, I'm not quite sure myself, but let me just do a little bit of drawing and see if we can make it out. So I just used a little marker pen to try and clear it up and make it easier to read. Now, the only letters I could see was H-A-T, hat. Can't quite see the C or the H. Maybe you, the viewer, can, or maybe it spells out as something else. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Now, one thing to consider though is there are quite a few white marks above, as you can see. You got it there, you got bits there, bits further up there, and also over this way. So if someone was trying to etch out, draw something, write a keyword down for some reason, why is it scribbled above as well, all over the place? It looks more natural to me. Now, let me just show you a comparison and see if we can link, maybe debunk this. And we'll use Scott Natal's footage from a previous hike video.
They're very porous and
So I just paused Scott's video there because as you can clearly see, there is similarity in terms of those white lines all over the rock. If we zoom in now, look, you can see it all. It's all over the place, in between cracks and over bits of ridges as well. That does look similar to this, does it not? Similar colour and so. And also, we can actually link this on to Sean's as well. Sean's covered cave, if we just skip that. As you can see, there are white marks there as well. So it is kind of interesting. Now, I'm sure rock experts and people who know more about it will be able to provide a better explanation down below in the comment section. If you do, feel free to leave one. And yeah, for most part of it, it is natural. This is natural. This is natural. And because it looks similar to Frank's, there's a high chance that's natural as well. A key point I want to add in as well. Yes, if you look at it closely, it does look like it spells H-A-T and then maybe C-H, hatch. But the reason why I'm not going all in on that idea is because of all the white markings above. It looks a bit too messy for someone to scribble the word hatch down. Why is there all that white stuff above it? Did they try writing beforehand and then failed? No, it seems too natural. An example that demonstrates it being not so natural and more intentional by somebody is this one, which was captured on one of Scott Nuttall's hikes when he was inside some kind of cave. As you can clearly see on the lower part of that rock, there seems to be an A arrowhead symbol, some kind of circle with a dot, and then a figure of 8. They look more precise, and at least a figure of 8 symbol, what you can see there, is an actual symbol in real life. So because it being on the rock and it looks similar to a real life symbol, it's more likely that it was done on purpose. Whereas this is more obscure and you got to look at it, stare at it for a bit to make it out. And so when you look at something like this, which is more obscure, you tend to stare at it longer to try and make something out of it. And that's when vision and perception is altered with, and then it's not natural then. It's more of an imagination from what you can see and make out. I hope that makes sense. Now, let's move on to the next key finding, which is very odd.
Oh, here's a sign. Or something, a piece of metal. Okay, Area 51, restricted area, no trespassing, use of deadly force authorized.
So when Frank pulled that sign out, I wasn't expecting it at the time. How weird. It's really strange how a sign like that especially was found there in that shallow cave, hidden as well. Now, it's got me thinking, there are many ideas and theories you could come up with. You know, the idea that, is that cave, that area Frank is in, is it restricted land? Has it been taken over by military and that's why that sign is there, to warn people off? Or to simply imply that you should not be here? That's one way of looking at it. It also raises the idea of, because we are not to know of the coordinates or the location of the cave where Frank is at, does that sign give it away? Is this area within the boundary, over the mark of Area 51 territory? Could it be? Maybe. We would have a better idea though if we did have coordinates, then we could compare and measure the distance from this cave to, you know, Area 51 military land, which you're not allowed to be in. Lastly, another thing to consider, we need to ask ourselves, who would put it there and why? Was it some worker? Was it someone mining in the past? They came across it and put it to one side, maybe? That's a possibility. Or was it some other random person who took the sign from somewhere else, brought it to the shallow cave, and then hid it? It wouldn't make really any sense. What would the point of that be? If someone wanted to keep that sign, then they should have took it home with them. So it's a bit weird. And just a simple fact that it was hidden under some rocks, under vegetation and stuff. Why? Why does it need to be hidden? Are you not supposed to see it? It's really weird. There's a lot of ideas going on. But with that sign being in that area, especially inside of the shallow cave, it makes you think, is there something going on? Is there something strange? Something hidden? Something mysterious? Because that military guy was originally trying to look for it, trying to get to the area, but he couldn't because of an injury. So, because it's Area 51 sign, shallow cave, could it be near military land? A military guy was trying to get to it to explore. You know, you could tie it all together and come up with some interesting conclusions. Tell me what you think down below in the comment section, because there's a lot going on. Now, once Frank reads the sign, deadly force authorized, he does get out quick.
Well, I think it's time for me to get out of here.
You can tell in the tone of his voice and I guess body language as well, moving very quickly. Now you could say, ooh, is that a bit mysterious? Personally, I would say no, it's just a natural instinct. You come across a sign like that, a warning, unexpectedly, you'd be thinking, oh no, I'm on alert now. I'm wary, I'm cautious. I better get out of here before anything bad happens. So it's normal for him to react that way. So, let's move on to the final few parts which reveal some extra features about the cave.
Here, look over here. Here's a nail sticking out of the rock. And it came out.
So this was kind of an interesting finding. So as you saw by Frank, it wasn't stuck in that deep, as it was quite easy to pull out and it was loose. But it does make you think, why would it be placed there and who would do that? What's the point? Now, in my opinion, if we're basing it off that idea, continuing the idea that there's some kind of mineshaft, some kind of work going on in the past, maybe that nail was placed there, maybe it was more firm in the past, and it was used maybe to tie things up, or maybe, more likely, it was used to hang a lantern on it, so it could dangle down and create light for the workers, for the people in that area. So yeah, I can imagine the idea of a lantern hanging and dangling on that nail because I have seen it elsewhere in other places. So it does make sense. Now, let's look at the next interesting feature, which is just next to it on the right-hand side.
Looks kind of dark back in there. I don't know.
So yeah, as you could tell by the description and most noticeably the audio of the wind coming out of that hole, it does make you wonder, is there more to this shallow cave? Where does that hole lead to? Does it go deeper down? Does it go further back behind the shallow cave? Now, normally when you do get a draft coming out, it's from within, deeper down, further in, maybe a mine shaft. I have seen comments about that in the past. Can't remember it quite in detail, but like when you do get an airflow, it's coming from an entrance or the exit elsewhere, and that might lead to something. Could lead to the mine. There could be a mine nearby. I do remember in one of Scott Nuttall's videos when he was near a mine or so, he could feel a draft, a breeze coming out. So that is interesting. Now, when Sean was at the covered cave, he too did go up to the cave, or the supposed cave, and tried listening in near the hole just to see if he could sense anything, hear anything. He did not. But nevertheless, let's just have a quick look at this with the magnifying glass and see if we can see anything. So I'll just enlarge it. Tell me if you can see anything. It is quite dark. I don't know how far it goes in. Magnify a bit more. It is difficult to see. Okay, I'll just try and brighten it up and see if we can make it just a little bit clearer. Okay, so that's the best I can do. It doesn't look like it goes too deep unless you look exactly there where it's a bit darker. It could be a very narrow, small hole which goes further back. might have twists and turns and bends, and that's where the air is blowing out of, coming out of. Possibility. Maybe if you had a camera on a long thin stick, you might be able to get down to the bottom of it. You might be able to see what's further in. Who knows? Now, there is one alternative final theory idea which was going around regarding the change in behaviour of Frank himself after approaching this hole.
Well, I got to get out of here. I think I've overstayed my welcome.
So yes, it is true from an observational perspective in body language, behaviour and tone of voice, he does seem to change. You know, earlier on in the video, he seemed a bit more relaxed, took it slow with the camera movement and the way he talked, the pace of his voice, the tone of it. But then after, you know, moving away from that hole, he's like, I got to get out of here right now. And you think, what's happened? What's changed? Did something put him off? Did looking into that hole spook him? Was it some kind of sound wave? Was it some kind of access denial system? Military equipment? In my opinion, probably not. And the reason why I think that is because not long beforehand, when Frank was inside the shallow cave, he did stumble across that hidden sign, Area 51, unauthorized access, a warning sign. There will be consequences. I believe that was the source. That's where it all stemmed from. That was the turning point in Frank's change of behaviour, tone of voice, and overall mood. That's when he decided to get out. He started stumbling, dropping the camera, and so on. So I don't think the hole, the airflow, had anything to do with the change of his behaviour. It was the sign itself, and the reaction from him is very natural. You know, you might be a bit worried, you might be a bit cautious, you don't want to get in trouble. You're not expecting to come across something like that, and when you do, and you know that the military guy doesn't want you to reveal the location, you might start thinking, oh, you know, this could get a bit messy. So it's very understandable. Now, from certain people's perspectives, the ones that like to have certain theories and wider range ones, if you did want to tie it in or try and link it to come to some conclusion or to reinforce certain people's points, well, Sean reacted to looking into that hole of the covered cave, getting too close to it, because not long afterwards he was sick and became quite ill. I'll show you the footage.
What's going on here? First off, there's a hole right here. I mean, there's like a... And as soon as I started heading back this way, I started getting sick. Something's hitting me right now. I'm trying to breathe it out.
So who knows what caused that sudden illness, that sickness? But some people were arguing that because of being up close to that covered cave, it was emitting something, or there was some kind of radiation or some kind of access denial system, whatever it could be, that made Sean ill not long after. Other people believed it was maybe dehydration, or maybe the extreme heat of the place, the area. You know, there's a range of different ideas to juggle around, but me personally, I don't think you can link Sean's experience to Frank's, because Sean was an illness. Frank was more concerned, more worried, a bit cautious of where he was after finding that sign. That's what I believe, and that's what most likely is the case. So I don't think there's anything odd there. So is there any additional notes? So when going through the comment section, some people were suggesting that there was little rocks, stones that appeared popping out of the side of the wall or something, like it was a button which could trigger something to open. I highly doubt so, because, you know, there was a range of rocks sticking out and stuff with different textures, so I don't think that would be the case. And, you know, I'm sure Frank would have maybe noticed it if it was that obvious, but you never know. Sometimes you get these little hidden passageways, these little weird levers and buttons. So yeah, but in my opinion, I don't think that's the case in this area. Some people were talking about how on the ground there was like a knob, a doorknob, some kind of trap door, some kind of handle lever or something you could pick and pull up. Then it might open the mine, it might open a door. I doubt that, because the piece they were talking about, I can't remember the timestamp, but the piece they were on about, it was quite flat, and I think it was just yet another plank, another board, which was kind of buried in the ground. So that rules that part out. Now, I did see there was, you know, a couple of people or so were saying, he wasn't there long, it was a short video. Surely you would have thought he would have inspected it longer, you know, maybe tapped on the rock, because some people were saying tap on the rock, see if it's hollow, if it's dense, you know, does it reveal anything? But he didn't. He didn't really go hands-on, you know, like Scott Natal does, or I guess Sean, where they go close to it, they touch the rock, they try and get into awkward places or hard to reach areas, they shove the camera in, they might try and see if the rocks are loose and stuff, or try and move the odd thing. But Frank didn't do any of that. And considering, you know, he does explore mines and abandoned places, you thought he would have been more hands-on, took more time to take it in, to really observe it, to scan the whole area. Because let's say if there was a mine there and you saw that hole, like how he said, you know, maybe it could trigger something in his mind to think, oh, I best look further into this because it might reveal something. But I think if we just put that aside just for a second, I think the one thing that halted that progression, that sense of exploring further, was the sign, like I've already referred to. I think the sign, the Area 51 one, ultimately changed his mindset when he was there. I think what was going through his mind was probably, I don't feel as comfortable here now, am I being watched? I don't want to test my luck, as he says in the video. So I could understand that. So maybe if it wasn't for the sign, the video may have been longer. He might have explored more, tried to look deeper, see if there was anything round the side, round the back, because, you know, that's the next thing. Okay, so I don't know if it was a mountain or some kind of like little hill or something, and there was rocks, and then the cave was there. What is round the side, or what is on the other side, maybe over the hill, over the mountain? Is there an exit point? Is there another entrance? Is there another way in? You know, like I was talking about that hole with the air blowing out. Where's the exit hole? Is there an exit hole? Could it be elsewhere? Maybe if he went onto the other side, maybe it could have revealed something. Who knows? You never know. All depends, because he wasn't there that long. I guess the sign influenced him. And yeah, so I can understand certain people saying, oh, would have been nice to see more, or, you know, a longer video, but it is what it is at the end of the day. And I think one key point, what we've always got to remember is, you know, it's in the same desert at the end of the day. I know it's elsewhere, it's not Pitcher Canyon, it's elsewhere. But, you know, like I said, you can't remove or take stuff away because you'll get in trouble. You know, it's like some kind of law, some kind of limitation, restrictions. You're not allowed to alter the environment. Well, that doesn't stop some people, does it? But because they're recording it for YouTube and uploading it, they don't want to record themselves messing with too much, just like Sean. He was cautious and careful with the covered cave, you know. If he started messing around with it, moving stuff around, he might have got in trouble and things could have got messy. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. Maybe that's what reinforced the idea to why Frank didn't explore too much or didn't go too far or started moving or trying to chip away at stuff, because you'd get in trouble. That's probably likely. Now, is there anything else I've missed? I mean, the only other point what people were talking about was it like concrete or something, maybe filled in the back wall, and the way it was done, the procedure, that's why it looks that way, or it's got that texture, that design. I'm not quite sure because I'm not an expert in that, but maybe. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Jeff Clark says. That's if people have watched this long into the video. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see what Jeff Clark says, because I can't fully remember, but I remember him telling me about filling in holes, filling in caves and mines and stuff in the past with some kind of, was it foam texture stuff, and then it would expand. But first of all, they would put like rocks in and stones, fill it in a bit, and then they would put the foam stuff in, then it would expand, fill all the gaps and the cracks, and then it would cause like a seal, and then it would harden, and then you'd put more rocks and stones over it, and then it would be completely hidden. Now, maybe some of you may already know about that, other people may not. Maybe Jeff Clark might link it down below or something, but I do remember along the lines of that stuff, and it was quite interesting. Now, do I believe that foam stuff was used here? Probably not, it doesn't look the sort. But then again, on the right-hand side, where it looked a bit more pale and a bit bubbly, maybe it was. I might be wrong, but yeah. But, you know, it's hard for me to tell because I'm not a rock expert, so I wouldn't know. I can only give my like rough opinion of all this stuff. And the experts or the people that know more, involved in stuff like that, you know, they can clear things up at the end of the day. But yeah, as I was saying, linking back, that rock wall, it does look like one whole thing, in my opinion. I can't quite see the cutout. I know Frank did that red outline, but I can't quite see the cutout of it. So, you know, I don't know. Anyhow, I think that sums it all up in terms of, you know, the viewers from his video, the comments they left, the questions and, you know, things they thought of. I think I answered most of it. You know, there might be new comments along the way, but I think that's most of it. So yeah. Now, in terms of an overall conclusion, I don't think it is the M cave. That's my opinion. I don't think it's the M cave. However, I do have a strong feeling that there is a mine shaft at that shallow cave, whether it be sealed off or if it's ground level and it's a shaft which is buried and covered over with dirt, planks of wood, whatever. Because as you saw, the planks of wood were buried underneath and some were hidden and some were stacked. Additionally, I feel that it could be a mine shaft because of the planks of wood themselves sharing similarities to the ones found at the mine shaft where Kenny stood, as well as other items like the beer bottle and stuff, which was also found inside of the mine shaft where Kenny was. So because of these similarities and crossovers, you can associate and, you know, you can form links. It makes sense. And I guess with that construction of that wall, whether it was to seal off the cave or another reason, and it was never completed, there were workers there at some point. So there was some work being done in that area. Who knows exactly or specifically what it was, but there was definitely humans there at some point in time. It all comes down to the date. How long does it date back to? That's questionable, but it seems like a while ago. So I don't know if you'd say it's within the same time frame of when Kenny disappeared. Could it have been even before that, or was it after? I don't quite know. But I do think the cave itself, aside from it not being like the M cave, there is something definitely strange about that area, in my opinion, due to the planks of wood, due to, I guess you could even argue, the scrape marks. Some of the wording does look like words, letters. But also, and specifically, the Area 51 sign. That's very odd for it to be there. And even that hole with the draft coming out, it must lead to somewhere, or there must be an exit hole or something elsewhere further back on the other side of the mountain, around the rock. I don't know. But there just seems to be quite a bit going on in that small area. So it does make you think. And who knows what happened to that military guy. He got injured. Maybe it was just like some kind of physical injury, in work, out of work, wherever. But I wonder why. I wonder why he wants to find the M cave. What's that got to do with him? Is he just interested? And with him being military, why did he want to go to this specific place? When did he come across it in the past? Was it when he was on duty, when he was walking past? Why would he be in that area? How remote is it? Is it far or near to a military base for a military guy to want to go to that area? For someone to know about that place, they've either hiked out there before, they know the place very well, or they work nearby, such as a military base, and he's a military guy, so it makes sense. Yes, there is a lot to take in and there's a lot of words said. You can, tell me your own opinion, your own theory down below. I do think there's something strange going on. I do feel that there are items which link together which do reinforce the idea of it being a mineshaft, the bottle, the planks of wood which you would see at a mineshaft, as well as the hole and the draft coming out. 3 things that link together. And if you really wanted to focus on the rock wall, the back wall maybe being filled in, maybe that could tie in as well. Who knows? I think that summarizes most of it. I do feel this is more suspicious than, I guess, that supposed covered M cave at this moment in time. That's what I'd say. I don't know if we'll ever find the coordinates or the location of the exact place, and I don't think asking Frank would help, because I'm sure he wouldn't say, just out of respect and privacy for the military guy. So maybe we'll never know, unless someone can guess, someone who may have already been there or nearby could give a prediction, a rough estimate, coordinates, and then maybe we can build on from there, create some kind of additional hike analysis route, and then see what happens in the future, if anyone goes there or can, whatever. I don't know. But this is, I think, the latest M cave finding. This is the latest one, the latest YouTuber to cover it, I believe. Who knows who will cover it next, or who knows what else someone will find. The only other final point is, it really wouldn't surprise me if this cave or the environment nearby was altered with afterwards. We've seen it with the mineshaft after covering that. We've seen it with the covered cave and the missing rock. So could this be the next target, the next area? Who is monitoring right now, who is watching right now, and who is going to go out there and then start messing around with the environment and terrain? I don't know, but it really wouldn't surprise me at the end of the day. So yeah, there's a lot to take in. This is probably a very long video, I apologise, but you know me, I want to break it down bit by bit, every single bit possible, try and form links, correlations, compare, contrast, link back to previous bits of evidence and footage, create an overall view, try and think of past links and current links, like I was telling you about in the past, the snap theory, how you keep coming across clues and more clues, and eventually you might find 2 that correlate, 2 that link, 2 that match, and it might tell a story itself, it might solve a subsection of the mystery, or it might just add to 1 step closer to solving the overall mystery of Kenny, and if not that, or equally at the same time, the M cave itself. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. As I said, make sure to leave a comment down below if you have any additional points or information, or if there's any experts out there to help clear things up, clarify stuff, that would be appreciated. And additionally, like I said, if you haven't checked out the previous hike rock analysis videos, make sure to do so. One of them, which is quite important, which I'll link corner of the screen right now. So yeah, this is the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time with whatever else occurs or appears. Goodbye.